Nowadays, it's like when they ask a question, when like it used to be when the Rebbe asks the child, okay, find out the answer, come back with tomorrow with the answer. Nowadays, he has to know what's not written in Google before he tells the child, because all the parents are going to look on their phone, they're going to know the answer, they're going to come back. That's not what's going to happen.
Bill O'Reilly, and he just wrote a book about JC,
Yeah.
stupidity book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he said that there couldn't have been any kangaroos
How does he
Kangaroos
know?
where?
How does he know?
on Noah's Ark.
Why couldn't there have been? Because they were in
Noah's Ark?
Australia? You know, let me
Why?
tell you
Because
something.
Hashem saved all the species, right? So
Yeah, so.
kangaroo must have been in there.
Let me tell you something else. Let me tell you. You know what? We're gonna go on the Obama jokes later. I got 3 or 4 good ones.
I think this guy supports Obama.
No. Aaron is Canadian. He's a joke. Number one. I want to say the following. Just for those who weren't here in the previous weeks, we've been discussing the Hagada. I have a very different approach to the Haggadah than most people. 2 weeks ago, I was speaking about that the Haggadah Shel Pesach is something that obviously has to be learned very well. And I'll just say a quick introduction. It could be that you heard it before, but I'm going to say a quick introduction to know that the Haggadah Shel Pesach is not a random compilation of different lessons from our sages. It starts talking about Manishtana Laila Zeh, and then it goes into the 4 sons, and then it starts about some rabbis that stayed up all night to learn, and then it says a little bit what happened in Egypt, and then we say Dayenu, and then we drink the wine. Like it seems a little bit random, but the truth is that the Rambam says a very, very clear structure to how the Haggadah Shel Pesach works. It says, number 1, we have to start explaining what Hashem did to us, what the Egyptians did to us, how Hashem took revenge, and saying thank you to Hashem. So it's a 3-step process. What they did to us, how Hashem took revenge, and saying thank you. That's basically our job for the night of the Seder. So the beginning, the Manishtana is just introductions. So, we ask questions in order to get into it. We say from different sages how important the story is, the 4 sons, different levels. Then we go into the details. What the Egyptians did to us, what Hashem did to them, thank you. So the main part of the Haggadah is to know what the Egyptians did to us and how Hashem took revenge. Why is that so important? Why is that so important? Why do we have to rehash the events every year? So there's a minhag, there's a custom by the Moroccans and by the Temanim. There are certain minhagim that they have that are very similar. One of their customs that they have that's similar is that there's a mock Yetziat Mitzrayim. It's like a fake Yetziat Mitzrayim. I don't know. Anybody ever went to Universal Studios?
Yeah.
Which one? In
Orlando and LA.
Oh, in LA. So you go through. You went through the Dead Sea.
Yeah.
You went through the Dead Sea.
That ride, by the way.
I'm so sad to hear. So what happened was that there was one mashgiach. His name was Yecheskel Levenstein. Yecheskel Levenstein was the famed tzaddik of the Mir Yeshiva, and they once saw in the morning before Shaharit, he piled up a bunch of chairs one on top of the other, and he was climbing on the chairs and between 2 benches and saying, "This is how we left Egypt." And somebody caught him, he came early, he saw him. He didn't want to be caught doing that, but they asked, "What are you doing?" He says, "If you don't relive it, it's not really going to sink into your bones. If you don't really if you don't go into the details, you're not really going to get an appreciation of what happened, and you're not going to be able to properly thank Hashem enough." The Rambam says our obligation the night of the Seder is we have to see ourselves as if we are leaving Mitzrayim. We have to see ourselves as if we are exiting Egypt. It's not enough just to think about it. We have to actually act it out. Got it? So this this mashgiach, so he was living it out, and so too. We have a custom by the Moroccans that the head of the family, he takes a bag. You know this in Arabic, or I don't know, maybe in Spanish they say, Where are you from? He says, I'm from Egypt. Where did you leave? I left through Moshe ben Amram. And throughout the night of the Seder, we have all these props that we're using. You know the word props, what it means? You know, yeah. You have all these props. You have the Seder plate. I mean, you have the charoset, like the mortar and the bricks. And you have the maror, you're eating the maror, and the matzah, and you do the sandwich, and like this they eat the korban pesach. And why do we have to have all these props? The answer is, if you want something to sink into your bones, it has to be through actions, through tangible actions that you do. That's how it's gonna make an impression on you. If you're not going to do things through practical means, it's not really going to sink into your bones. So the lesson for the night of the Seder is that we do all of these practical props, and we speak about the Seder in order to that the lesson should sink in. So, I'll tell you personally, by me, I am at an age that, Max knows my age. I'm getting older, a little bit depressed about it. But just celebrated a birthday, and thank you. And I'm at an age that my children, I have like from age 14 and under, but I have till like, let's say, 1 year old, and I have like children in between. Right? So how am I going to, like, what am I supposed to say at the Seder night? What am I supposed to do? What's my job? I'm supposed to concentrate on the big ones and leave the little ones? Absolutely not. My whole Seder is focused on the younger children. And I don't... Yeah. And I don't care about the older ones so much. I'll make it interesting for them also. But the night of the Seder is about the children. When I was a teenager in Montreal, they're smarter than here, so they graduate a year earlier high school. You know that? They graduated grade 11. So I went to Israel after grade 11. I was quite young. So what happened was that I was there for Pesach with a friend of mine. And we were invited for the night of the Seder to the dean of the biggest school for Israeli girls in Jerusalem. It's called Neve. Maybe you heard of it in Hanover. It was the Israeli Neve. His name was Rabbi Metzger, because he was the father-in-law of our Rebbe, where we were learning. So we got there. We thought we prepared all these fancy Dvar Torahs that we're going to speak, and we're gonna give him a run for his money. We didn't say a word the whole Seder. He sat there telling stories to the little children the whole time. It was very impressing on us. The impression that we got during that year was great, because we saw this is really how a little Seder has to be. You have to concentrate on saying over the story properly. You could say, oh, you're a little... I have one daughter who has like this, a packet of things already to say the night of the Seder. She'll say it over the rest of Pesach, not the night of the Seder. The night of the Seder, I want to say the story in detail. So that's why where I concentrate the most at the night of the Seder is by the Asara Makot, by the 10 plagues. Because that's where there's a lot of stories, and that's where there's a lot of details. And that, if you explain it properly, it makes a deep impression on the children. I mean, there are some people even that they make the children act out the plagues. That's a very good thing. There's some places that they'll sell these Asara Makot props. It became very in nowadays. I think it's a good thing. Because it gets the children, whatever gets the children involved. You get chocolates that are like locusts, you get real locusts, you get real frogs in a corner. Whatever you can do, it's a good thing. Just make a child's mind, especially, whatever you tell the child stays with him. So the more details, the better. So that's why last week we already studied the Makkah of Dam, Tzvadea, Kinim. Right? Max, you were with us last week? The first three Makkot. So now we're continuing on to the next three, which is Arov Dever Shchin, which is wild animals, the death, the plague of the animals, and boils. So the makot also have a very defined system to them. One of the ways that we said that there was their system, what we said I believe last week was that the first set came from below, right? Dam, water, tzfardea, from the earth they came out, and kinim also they came out. The lice came from below. The second set is coming from the air. So there was something in the air that brought the animals, the wild animals. So if you remember, there are some plagues where Paro says, "Okay, pray for me that it stops," and Moshe had to pray for him. And some plagues it didn't work that way, like blood. It didn't work that way; it just went on its own. But some plagues he would have to ask. We also are going to explain each and every makkah, each and every plague. There was tit for tat. It's called in Lashon HaKodesh, midah keneged midah. What Hashem did, exactly that retribution, that retribution Hashem did. In other words, so the makot are a time also where you see divine retribution to its fullest. When did we see that the most? During the sinking of the Yetziat Mitzrayim in the sea. There was three levels of people. There was the Rishaim of the Egyptians, the better ones, the tzaddikim of the Egyptians, and the middle ones. The Rishaim, they were bobbling kakash. We say it in Aras Yashir, Yochele mukakash. They were like kash. And then there was the Yidimuka Avin that went down like a rock, which was like in the middle. And there are those who went ke'evir, like lead, which is right away down. So the tzaddikim went right away. Rishaim bobbled and suffered, and the middle guys were like a stone, which takes a little bit of time to go down. All right. So just like over there was like divine retribution. So over here too, we're going to see. First of all, the wild animals. All the Jews were very scared. What's going to happen? You're going to have a bunch of lions that are going to come in. They were very scared. But Hashem said, "Don't worry." Beforehand, what was happening beforehand is that Paro wasn't sure that Moshe Rabbeinu was legitimate or not, because his sorcerers were able to create everything up until now, just they weren't able to take it away. They were even able to create the louse, but they weren't able to take it away. So he still wasn't sure. Maybe they're just expert sorcerers and they're making a lot of trouble. But by the wild beasts, he had no answer. How come this lion knows to go to this guy and not to that guy? Already then, Paro was starting to become a believer. By the wild beasts, Paro was starting to become a believer. It says like this. The Rabbeinu Behaye, other great commentaries, they say V'samti pedut ben amiu ben amichalachar. By the makkah of the wild beasts, he said, "I'm going to put a separation between you and between the rest of the nation." That was the starting of the plague, where it was starting to be seen the difference between the Jews and the non-Jews. It was by Arov. Now, why beasts? Like, what did the Jews? How did the Egyptians punish them? It says like this: the Egyptians used to send the Jewish slaves deep into the forest to catch wild beasts for their sporting events. Yeah? For their hunting and sporting events, they would go tell them, "Go catch me a tiger, go catch me a snake." So in the process, many Jews died because the animals killed them. So midah keneged midah, divine retribution said, "Okay, you made the Jews go out for the wild beasts, I'm going to send you the wild beasts." This is Tana de Belial, the Midrash, the Hagada Teman writes this, a couple of sources write this. Everything I'm telling you now is well documented in sources in the Midrash. I'm not telling you anything that's not documented. You're going to see it's going to get even more wild. Furthermore, the Egyptians forced Okay, so the next morning, Moshe Rabbeinu actually played a trick on Paro. He came to him early in the morning, and Paro said, Why are you coming to me? I have to go to the bathroom. Oh, I thought you were a god. Already so he says, okay, you found out I'm not a god now. This is the first time where Paro revealed to Moshe Rabbeinu that he's not a god. Okay, fine. So he's already starting to become more humble. He says, I'm sending you wild animals. Okay. The wild animals came. First of all, animals from tropical rainforests reigned side by side with animals from the frosty polar region. So you had a polar bear next to the lion. You understand? People that different animals with different climates. It's like you let the whole Toronto Zoo out. Yeah? Lions, bears, leopards, panthers, hyena, wolves, pigs, donkeys, ox, kangaroos. Yes, there you have it. You asked for it. You wanted to know if kangaroos. You have the answer right here. They were in Egypt, and they got then how did they get to Egypt from Australia? According to your Mr. O'Reilly over there. Foxes, wild goats, cats, hedgehogs, rats, mice. There's one mice though. I still can't catch at home for a year. Can't get that guy. Weasel. They could cause You know how much they've been torturing me for a year? Weasels. Don't start with me. Lizards, turtles, snakes, scorpions, leeches, worms. Worms. What could worms do? You're right. I don't know. Who says all of these names?
Worms.
The Midrash, Sefer Yashar, Abar Benel, Midrash Teilim. You want to hear more? Eagles, vultures, ravens. This is all the football teams. Owls, pelicans, ostriches, wild birds, flies, fleas, mosquitoes, bees, hornets. All right, you get the picture. Imagine all of these animals, the whole zoo, let out.
How did they survive?
They didn't kill everyone, but they killed a lot of people.
Wake up in the morning.
Wait a second. So what happened? The flies and the fleas flew in the eyes of the Egyptians. The hornets would spray. They had a certain spray that's written in the parasha. It's called in Hebrew sir'ah with a tzadi. Havet sir'ah shalach lifnechem. And in parashat Kitisa, going to send for you the tzir'ah. It's a bad type of bee
that makes no honey.
that makes no honey. Yeah. Now, and they would throw poison. It says like this: they would stand on one side, they'd be able to throw poison in the people's eyes. Okay. So what did they do, the Egyptians? They locked themselves in their house. Big deal. So we won't go outside. We'll just stay at home. Right? Listen to this. There's the Sefer HaRokeach. Very famous book. There's a very famous book. The Sefer HaRokeach says that there was a Silonit that came out. A Silonit is literally a sea monster. It's a big mahloket what this sea monster is. Some people want to say, most people say it was a mermaid. Okay? During Makat Orev, there was a mermaid that came out. I hope it's a man for artsniut purposes. You shouldn't get into it with the children. Rav Aryeh Kaplan, you know Rav Aryeh Kaplan? He says it was a squid, a giant squid. Now this giant squid comes out. It's written in the Sefer Yashar. It's dangling tentacles would go out. And they would go inside the windows, and they would go for the Egyptians. Look, hey, where are you? And the snakes would also come from the bottom. So they tried to go in the houses, and it didn't work. Okay, so for days the Egyptians they were getting, as we say, they were getting the tirha. They were getting. How do you say it? Palisa. They were getting the palisa. You know what that is?
So do my kids.
So basically, they didn't even sleep, because if they slept, they knew that it was going to be a problem. So they were sleep deprived, and they were quite upset. The Egyptians were losing some of their children to the animals, and nothing was happening to the Jews. So not only that, they destroyed a lot of crops. There was one particular animal that it had this umbilical cord and tentacles that was able to suck out the nutrients out of the ground. Able to suck out the nutrients of the ground. Somehow, the Egyptians also they attacked us. They made us use their ground. So midah keneged midah, their ground got dry and weakened. All right. So it comes to Paro, and Paro tells Moshe Rabbeinu, enough. So
No mas.
here there was a little bit of a discussion. Moshe Rabbeinu saying, okay, negotiation time. We have to leave for 3 days. Bar saying you could pray right over here. He says, what do you mean pray right over here? If we start slaughtering your sheep for our korbanot, they're the god of the Egyptians. They're all gonna kill us. So Paro said, no, I give you permission. He said, very nice, but we think there's going to be a revolt. We have to leave for 3 days. Why not 1 day? No, we have to leave for 3 days. So Paro said, okay, fine. But Moshe Rabbeinu knew already that Paro was just saying, okay, you guys will go. And Paro was going to use it in his excuse later on, saying, well, I only told you guys. I didn't tell you all the Jews. I only told you Moshe and Aaron. You guys go pray for everyone. Yeah, you don't need everyone to pray. Just you need the top 2 rabbis to go and pray, and everything will be okay. I get that all the time. I say, Rabbi, we don't have to go to synagogue. You guys will pray for me, and that's enough. You ever heard of that, Max?
Yeah, sure, over there.
All right.
He's pointing at the Lawrence of Bathurst.
That's right. He's born in the Lawrence of Bathurst. That's right. Now, obviously, once it passed, he didn't keep his promise. Next, so Moshe Rabbeinu prayed. It went. Next was going to be the next makkah.
How much time was it?
Okay, so each makkah we said last week took a month. 7 days the plague, 3 weeks plague,
Break.
and 3 weeks break, and
7 days to what?
7 days the plague, 3 weeks break.
I want to know how any Egyptian survived the wild beasts. That's what I want to know.
A lot of Egyptians. They didn't kill everyone. There's a lot of Egyptians. There's a whole nation.
You got a tiger in here. In 2 minutes, it eats everybody up. We're all dead.
Okay. Yeah, obviously.
Hashem scared them, or
He spared them. Yeah, obviously he didn't want to get rid of everyone in one shot. It was a slow process. Eric, what do you say? Now, next day, what?
Lots of Egyptians.
Yeah. He agrees with me. Lots of Egyptians.
Morango, as my mother would say.
Okay, next. Dever. What's Dever? The animals all got sick, all their cows, and they died. Obviously, cows and sheep and all types of animals dying in the street brings a tremendous amount of disease, death in the streets. That's also the air. So yeah, we're dealing with the next 3 plagues that are in the air. So this is the second. So Arov was also in the air somehow. Dever, as you can understand, it's disease that's in the air. Primarily, it was animals, but Egyptians also understandably died because it was an epidemic. Jews were totally healthy. Now, I always wanted to say a chidush in the Torah. When it talks about dever, it says that the animals of the Egyptians died, and the animals of the Jews. It says like this. Dever. Here also there's going to be a special differentiation between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of the Egyptians. Velo yamut mikol livnei Yisrael davar, and not one of the Jews is going to die. What is this coming to tell us? That I understand by the goyim, there's going to be a tremendous dever. Now think about it. By the Jews, they must have had hundreds of thousands of animals. You would say that if nature runs its course, maybe 50, 100 animals a day die by the Jews. Over here, Hashem made it that no animals of the Jews, even who were supposed to die, your old cow Betsy, didn't die by Makat Dever. They were still alive. Yeah? Okay. The what? That's why, because it says in the passage, "Lo met afilu echad." So I wanted to suggest that what it means, not even what was supposed to die according to nature, Hashem made a miracle that the Jews' animals wouldn't die that time. Okay, now there's a very big discussion by Dever. Did all the animals die in one shot, or did it take the 7 days for them to die? It's a machloket between the Radbaz, who was the Rebbe of the Arizal, the Rav of the Arizal, is a great Rav in Egypt. He said it took 7 days for them to die. But the Abarbanel was from Spain. He was in the time of the Spanish Inquisition. He was one of the Don Yitzhak Abarbanel. He was one of the highest in the king courts. He said that right away they all died. It still took Shechin. It still took the next Makkah a whole month. Remember, because we said last time it took a month. So this one, he says, Abarbanel, they all died in one day. The epidemic stuck around for 7, and then 3 weeks later, which is a month from the beginning of the plague, was the next plague. Okay, by this plague already, there was no way around it. Paro didn't even ask him to do anything. He didn't even discuss it with Moshe Rabbeinu. He didn't even discuss it. Okay, so this Makkah went on its own. Now we're dealing with Shechin. Shechin, which is the sixth Makkah, the third in the set of the Makot of the air. Right? We said Arav Dever Shechin is the air. So Shechin, Moshe Rabbeinu took a bunch of earth and he threw it up. Listen to this. Usually something with such fine dust, like Moshe Rabbeinu threw dust in it, can't go so high. Over here, it went so high. I'm going to tell you the exact. There was four miracles happened. Number one, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to hold four handfuls in one hand. 2, it didn't have any weight to it, and it was able to be thrown till it reached 400 feet, I think. And third, it spread on 1,100 miles. 1,100 miles it spread. And the fourth, as soon as it landed, it turned into boils. Okay, and once again, the purpose of these makot are to show that there's a difference between the Jews and the non-Jews. Hashem knows how to differentiate. Your sorcerers don't know how to do this. Arov Dever Shechin. What's the retribution? So there's a machloket what the retribution is. Number one is that they forced the Jewish people to be bath attendants, warming up cold water and cooling off the hot water. But only the Egyptians could have pleasure. The Jews could never have pleasure from the bathhouses. Now the Egyptians are going to have boils and they can't take baths. It's going to kill them. On top of that, the Jewish people were overloaded with work and they weren't able to treat the wounds. The Egyptians would now be made suffer for the untreatable boils. Okay? And finally, Hashem made the Jews work so hard, they weren't able to be together with their wives at all. Because they were all tired. So now Hashem, okay, fine, you do that. You guys are going to have boils, you can't touch your wives. Okay, so that was the midah keneged midah. That was the divine retribution. Now, how did these boils look? This is going to be a little bit gory. Anybody who doesn't like horror movies, you shouldn't listen to this. He said 24 different kinds of boils. Some were dry, some were liquid, some were hot, some were cold. Some of them had destroyed their body hair, eczeama, scurvy, skin ulcers, ringworm, and other inflammation and skin diseases. All right, we don't have any dermatologists over here. There was one type that Rashi says in 2 places. Rashi in Masechet Ketubot and Rashi in Masechet Gitin says there was one type of boils. It's called Rasan. Rasan is a skin disease that eventually goes to the brain. It causes running nose, eyes, incessant drooling, and loss of blood. It has such weakness that a person is not able to stand. So this again, remained so hard. Paro did not go to consult Moshe Rabbeinu. Paro did not go. He made him just like withstand the plague. But Paro made sure that Moshe Rabbeinu made sure that Paro was spared for it. Otherwise, Paro would have been unable to withstand the boils because it was worse. Till now, it was the worst up to date. Everything gets progressively stronger. Boils was worse. Could you imagine than the wild animals? Wild animals was scary. Whoever survived, survived. But this was painful to everyone.
You could have just ruined the entire town. Like, the wild animals could have just run around and just destroyed everything. Not necessarily kill people.
They ate everybody.
Why? Not necessarily. Doesn't have to be.
I think Hashem's spirit. He said Hashem
Okay.
didn't want to finish this.
So far, okay. So we're holding. So we did Dam Tzfardei Akinim. That's the earth. Hashem knew that there's God in the world. Arov Dever Shchin, which is the air. And also, Paro knew already that God knows the difference between the Jews and the non-Jews. It only fell on the Jew, on the non. He already saw that there's very, very defined parameters between the Jews and the non-Jews. I mean, even by Dam he saw this, but it was getting more and more clear. So Paro was a believer by now, but Hashem hardened his heart to a point that there was no turning back. The Rambam says this was the only time that Hashem removed free choice from someone. It's the only time Hashem removed free choice from someone. Hashem never did that before. It was only in order so that there should be this great miracle of Yetziat Mitzrayim. For the one time in history, Hashem took away the free choice from Paro.
What plate?
I'm not sure when he did that. I don't know.
Kangaroo.
The fifth? Because up to the fifth, he had a choice. Because he refused the first part, punished him with
I think you told us that once.
He says up to the fifth.
Was it the fourth or the fifth? Midway, no?
Yeah, Rabbis.
I'm not sure because I saw it over here at the beginning also. Wait, by Dever?
Why would he do that though? Why it's not fair?
Because there is a special agenda over here that Hashem wants to. Paro already. What happens is like this. There's a big question. Everybody asks the Rambam. How do you take away Shiur? Very nice. Hashem did it, but that's not how you run the world. It's not fair. The answer is that Paro already showed very clearly that he wasn't that he wasn't interested in saving the Jews. So even if he would have to go like later on because like he's suffering so much, but he already sealed his own fate.
So Moshe
Yeah. In other words, there's a rule called like this that. Do you know the story with Acher, Elisha ben Abuya? Elisha ben Abuya was a big the Rav of Rabbi Meir Abal Hanes in the Gemara, and he eventually strayed off the path. So when he died, there was smoke coming out of his grave. It shows that he was being burnt in Gehinnom. So Rabbi Meir prayed for him, and the smoke stopped. So he asked him in a dream, or he asked him, he asked him before he died. He said, "I don't understand. Why don't you do teshuvah, chazor becha?" So Elisha ben Avuya said, because somebody who sins and causes other people to sin, en maspikin mimenu, we don't let him come back to do teshuvah. Somebody who sins and makes other people sin also, we take away the opportunities for him to do teshuvah. Okay, so he was right then. So why did he have to burn again? I mean, we understand. So it was too late for him to do teshuvah. The answer is okay. So that was the cleansing process. The answer is like this: even if the door is shut for teshuvah, you can bang on the door still. Even the door is shut, you should have banged on the door. The story that we learned in Masechet Sanhedrin with Yeshu, Jesus, he went off the path. Remember we learned that together in PT? He snapped, and and because his Rebbe kept on pushing him away, so he said, forget about it. I'm leaving Judaism. He took a brick and he started bowing down to the brick. And then he went so far off, they asked him, come back, forget about it, forget what you're doing. He says, no, I learned, you taught me that anybody who makes other people sin, Hashem is not going to let him open up the door for him. That might be true. Might not open up the door for you. But you got to try to climb the door. You got to try to bang it down. What happens if you're running away from a sea monster or something? Yeah, that we learned. The door's closed. What are you going to do? You're going to break the lock. Whatever you have to do, you have to do. And that was that's what Jesus wasn't able to do, and that's what Elisha ben Abuya weren't able to do. They didn't try hard enough. And Paro already proved that's it. He's given it up. He's on that path. The door is shut. It could be that Paro would have banged down the door. Maybe something would have happened. But he went too far already. He wasn't. It was like he wasn't interested anymore. Okay. Let's see if we have time to deal with the last 3 plagues before Makat Bechorot, which is Barad Arbe Hoshech, hail, locusts, and darkness, which is the sky. So we dealt with the earth, the air, and now the sky. Barad Arbe Hoshech. Now, what's the purpose of Barad Arbe Hoshech? Hashem's power in the world. Until now, it was Hashem's existence, Hashem's authority, Hashgacha on everything. And now it's Hashem's power on nature. Hashem has full grasp on nature. I said in a drasha this week something very important. It says like this: Be'asara ma'amarot nivra ha'olam. In 10 utterances, Hashem created the world. There should be light. There should be animals. There should be vegetation. In 10 different utterances, which we say in Pirkei Avot, Be'asara ma'amarot nivra, the world was created. Each one of the Asara Makot represents one of the utterances. The Maharal explains each one, how it works. He shows each word in the Makkah, how 10 utterances. And the reason is because we were in the middle of a transformation of the world over here. The world was, until now, the world was certain course. The world was only working on a course of nature. After the Asarat Makot, it's going to be miracles that Hashem's going to run the world through miracles. So right now Hashem is revamping the whole world. It's like how you call it in the computers when there's a breakdown. You know what computers are? You know what happens when a computer? Sometimes you have to reboot the whole thing. Reformatting. You have to reformat the whole thing. You know what? That Hashem had to reformat the whole world now. Because until now, it was working with the rules of nature. Now, the nation of Israel is being created, and they work above nature. So the whole world had to be reformatted through the Asara Makot. Remember to say this, Leila Seder, through the Asara Makot. So, right now, it's the reformatting of everything that's coming from the sky and everything above nature. So, there was the great miracle was that the fire and the ice came together. During the ice storm, we saw this. There was fires that happened during the ice storm. This is the 7th. We're doing the 7th, 8th, 9th. I don't know if we're going to have time for everything. But the 7th. Yes, Barad. Now, what was the divine retribution? What was the divine retribution?
I heard once that Dam is compared to Dam Nida of a woman. When a woman gives birth, right? The water breaks, she bleeds, right?
Are you serious?
Yeah. So that's literally that's like Am Yisrael being born at the time of Dam Midah. That was like the first like push, if you want to say, of Bnei Israel, right? And this I heard in Israel, so I don't remember it, but that was like
That's how it.
you bring in this whole thing. I would compare to like the labor of a woman is
That it goes-
it goes through it.
Okay, I hear. Okay, so the Egyptians would always send the Jewish people to plant and seed their fields and tend to the orchard, keeping them away from their family. Right? So now Paro send them, okay, you did that, I'm going to send you Barad, which is going to keep you away from your family. You're all going to be at home on the fields, away from the fields that Hashem is, because Hashem is destroying the trees and the crops. In other words, you would make the Jews always be in the trees and the orchards away from their families. I'm going to destroy those orchards. Number two, the Egyptians will not allow the Jewish people to rest on the grass and cool themselves off. I'm sending you Barat to destroy that grass. Number three, the Egyptian people would beat the Jews with stones and berated them with language and everything. Now the Egyptians also would be pelted with stones, and also there was tremendous noise, deafening noise that would come from Barat. Noise could drive a person crazy. That, one of the worst tortures we said noise. What was the noise? Because of the frogs. We spoke about this by the makat of the frogs. That the Americans, the way that they tortured the Taliban is that we keep on playing Sesame Street over and over and over. Over and over. It was nuts. So the Egyptians kept on swearing and insulting the Jews, drove them crazy. Midah keneged midah. So this week we finished the 3 makot. Maybe next week we'll have a shiur. If you guys are interested, next week a shiur. Yeah. Tuesday, Bli Neder. So I'm going to send out an email. Make sure I want to get your emails, and we're going to finish the Asara Makot. Hazaku Baruch. You have their emails?